I woke up this morning with new wisdom on my mind. I know who I am. There's no need to hide. I got something to say. I'm thinking that it's time. Why? Cause I'm a young intellect. I'm a young intellect. I'm a young intellect. I'm a young intellect. Pay me my respect.
You are now tuned in to the Young Intellect Podcast, an open space where experiences and opinions are welcomed, hosted by Andreas, Sam, and Mafwa.
Hello and welcome, Young Intellects. This is your co-host, Mafwa, welcoming you to our open space to teach, learn, laugh, and love.
I am your co-host, Sam, here to encourage you to explore different ways to view the world at large.
And I'm your co-host, Andreas Renee, bringing you loads of realness and motivation into your everyday lives and minds.
Okay. Today,
love the intro.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So, today we have a really interesting, different topic. So, whilst we all have ancestors, few of us are aware of the importance of our ancestors and the role they play in our lives, whether they are currently here today or not, so whether they're alive or not, due to a lack of understanding or connection to them. Our next guest is a divine holistic healing goddess, and she is here to talk about our ancestors and the importance of their roles in our lives. With all of that being said, we would love to welcome Miss Kerdell.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello. I love that description, divine holistic healing goddess. Wow.
Yes.
That's who you are.
Stop it. Okay, so I'll just give a brief introduction of who I am, I guess.
Yeah.
My name is Kerdell, as you said. I'm like 23 years old. I'm an Aquarius. Yay, Aquarius. I was born in the Caribbean. I'm from a small island right in the middle of the Caribbean. It's called Dominica. It's not Dominican Republic, like most people think when I say I'm from Dominica. It's a Creole-speaking island. Our main language is English, but our second language is Creole, French-based Creole. We're in between two French islands, and we are the most volcanic island in the Caribbean. We have 9 volcanoes. Most of them are dormant. Yeah, it's crazy. Most of them are dormant, but because of that, we have a lot of mountains and rivers. It's a very beautiful island. Anybody who likes to travel, I recommend that they go there. And I'm a student right now at Midwestern State University, that's in Texas. And I'm studying finance. And I also enjoy nature and dancing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I've actually heard of Dominica, sorry. It's like
Okay.
a greenish flag. And
Yeah.
yeah, like it's most famous for its like scenic nature.
Yep. We're actually called the nature island of the Caribbean.
Yeah. And
Ooh.
Pirates of the
Yeah.
Caribbean was shot there, like, or a few scenes.
Yeah, it was. Oh my gosh, you know.
Yeah, I do a little bit of research.
Okay.
So I'm from like, a little island too. I'm from the Caribbean.
Oh yeah, where you from?
I'm Haitian.
Oh, you said Haitian. Oh, nice, nice.
That's beautiful. I definitely have to go visit since it's so beautiful, and I'm just like imagining now, and I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
definitely going.
Right.
Yeah.
I've been planning some traveling trips, so
Oh,
that's
nice.
definitely one that I have to take.
Hey, if you guys ever come, just hit me up and I could show you guys around, okay?
That would be beautiful.
Ooh.
That'd be wonderful. And
We
thank
gotta plan that.
You guys like hiking?
Oh, hi.
I've never tried, but I really wanted to do it.
Yeah, I wanted to.
Yeah, we have a lot of trails and it's very beautiful.
It looks beautiful.
Ooh.
From like the videos I've seen, it looks really nice.
Thank you for that introduction, by the way. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So what are some practices you do or own?
All right. Well, I would say I'm a mix of mainly occult spiritual practices and traditional African practices, mainly Ifa, which comes from the Yoruban tribe in Africa. They mainly live in Nigeria, but I know that they have other sectors in other places of Africa. So
Mm.
that's kind of what I do. What encompasses all of that is things like meditation, prayer. Prayer is such a easy way of spirituality. Um, it's surprising, but I still read my Bible. I'm not a Catholic, but I still read my Bible. And a lot of people don't know, but the Bible talks about astronomers and magicians in positive ways. A lot of people, stick on the negative ways that the Bible talks about those things. But there are actually a lot of bases. Even the book of Daniel was called the chief of magicians. And in the book of Daniel, magicians were called wise men. So
Mm.
I just learned that. I'm like, I need to tell as much people as I can.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow,
um
I never knew that. That is,
yeah, yeah. That's
huh.
the same way I was. I was like, what? So like it's in the first 5 chapters of Daniel if anybody is interested in reading that. And I also, work with herbs, work with my ancestors, of course, and I do a little working with oils.
Mm.
Mm. Okay.
So I guess a question that I did want to ask is that like you could have spoken about any topic today. Was there a
Yeah.
specific reason why you chose to speak on ancestors?
I think the specific reason is to just like educate more people on it because a lot of people have a negative idea when it comes to things like this. And it's so crazy because it's widely practiced, but I think the most negative emotions are sent towards people of color, African people, or people of African descent, or just people of color, black people, because a lot of people who are black in America, they more consider themselves to be Native Americans. So,
Mm.
I just like to say Black people in general. We are degraded for doing those things, but people who may practice it in Mexico or China, their culture is, always seen as something positive in movies. They have big parades for the Day of the Dead, but you can't catch them doing that for something like Ifa or Oshun in America or just places where it's very negative. So, the more we talk about this openly, the more people understand it. And I guess the less people would judge it. If you guys are hearing any noise, that's my cat. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
That was a beautiful explanation. I love that.
Mhm. And yeah, people do have a negative mindset when it comes to like spirituality with African
Yeah. Yeah.
spirituality specifically.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
especially when it comes to like the dead
Yeah.
spirits.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, 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 that's the devil.
Yeah. Yep.
Like,
Yep.
so it's like okay, definitely speaking about this will help people like just at least become comfortable or hear it, so it's a bit normal to them.
Or
Hmm.
explore it too, because
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know. So,
Yeah.
Right. Because a lot of like, I'm just African American from all that I know right now until I
Yes.
take my test and really figure out my, roots. But
Yeah.
right now, I just know that I'm African American. I know a lot of other African Americans. We're not, a lot of us are not taught or raised on, spirituality and,
Yeah.
finding our roots and going back into our ancestors and really having that connection. And
Yeah.
we don't, we get so comfortable with just kind of like dismissing it to where it's like when somebody brings it up, it's like, oh, like, are you sure you should be doing that? Blah blah blah. But
Yeah.
I for one love it. I've always loved spiritual healing, so this is going to be a very interesting episode,
Yeah.
especially from coming from somebody who knows so much about it. So I hope everyone gets something out of it today.
mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
How did you come to find the importance of ancestors? Like, what led you in that journey?
Um, well, it was a multitude of things. I would say the main thing would be trauma, though. Like all throughout my high school, college years, between those years from the age of 15 or maybe younger, 14, I went through a lot of experiences that broke me a lot. And I think I was pushed into spirituality in that way, and naturally came into, the ancestral part of it in that way. So this is gonna be a little story. I hope I'm gonna try and summarize it. But
Okay.
like in high school, for instance, I would always have these vivid dreams, and I would always like I'm somebody who questions things. I guess it's an Aquarius trait. We like to question and research. So I always question like what was the meaning of these dreams, and I would research that. And that's how I guess I started to interpret my dreams, which is also something I do currently. And I also used to go on like online and do tarot readings, but like it was on a website. I would go on a website and click on random cards. So I was doing that all in high school. Meditation, I tried it for some time. I also started to learn about star seeds and indigo children all in high school because I felt like I was different. I felt like I was going through that trauma for a reason.
Mm.
Because I would ask, it's crazy. I'm gonna get a little deep here. I would ask the Almighty to just take away my life because I didn't want to be here. But I would be told that no, you have a greater purpose. So that kind of led me into learning, what more is out there. And into my college years, I started to do research because I love history. So I have an associate degree in history. So I was doing more historical research, and I came across the history of African Americans in America, I guess, and I think it was also sparked by a lot of killings that was happening. And I started to learn about lynching and the civil rights movement. I watched a whole documentary series. I suggest anybody who, wants to learn more about that, they could look at it. It's a PBS series on YouTube about the civil rights movement. And I was so heartbroken to know what was going on with African Americans in America that I wanted to learn more about just Africans. Like, how did we come to this? How did we come from, how did they take us from our place into a place of sadness or whatever? And I started to learn more about African history, and that's kind of how I got into African spirituality and ancestors, because I learned about the importance of the ancestors through that, mainly through ancient Egyptian mythology and stuff. But then I started to learn about the different traditions throughout the continent.
Hmm.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have
Yeah.
a very curious nature.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I actually did two research papers on Africa as well in university. One of them talked about the uh what's it called? Oh gosh. The evolution of humans in Africa, and the next one was about ancient African communities and what they contributed to the history of present day. What were their contributions to man. And I came across so much information. It's crazy. I could go on about this, but I'll stop.
Great.
Very a lot. I'm getting some information right now. I'm like, oh, maybe I should do a little
Right.
research.
Do you remember like some of the links or some of the books you read or
Oh yeah.
articles maybe or
Oh yeah, I even have some of the books here still, but for those research papers, one isn't fully complete, but I could email you guys the one that is complete. It has all the links and everything that I read to get those information.
Yeah,
I would love that.
Oh, no
yeah.
problem.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I actually didn't even know they had like the online tarot cards where you could like
Oh yeah.
Me neither.
I would have got myself up.
Oh, okay.
No, but I mean it's still very good the fact that you're doing that in high school. Uh,
Yeah.
it's a bit different when you hear that because normally high school kids are all kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I was deep into Catholic tradition because my father is a Catholic. But as I said, like I always felt different. So I didn't really feel like it was for me.
Mm,
Okay.
Mm.
and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
So I guess another good question to be asked, like to start this off, really is like basically what and who are ancestors?
Okay. I have come up with a small definition just off my head. I would say ancestors are persons. It's even kind of, weird to say persons because some traditions believe that your ancestors, lived through animals, but we'll just keep it simple and say persons you know or you didn't know who are either dead or living and are related to you in either this life or a previous life. Because I believe in past lives and,
Mm.
ancestors from past lives.
Okay, I like that, and I have heard about animals. Like in some cultures, they don't eat certain animals because, like, oh, that could be your ancestors.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I didn't think about that.
So, like, why do you think some people are not connected to their ancestors, or overall, why are like Black individuals are not so connected with their ancestors?
I would say it's a multitude of things. I think it's trauma. I came across this word. I think it's in that documentary, Hidden Colors. I think, yeah, Dr. Uma Johnson is on there. And anyway, they talked about, I can't remember what the word was, but it was kind a certain type of trauma you go through, and it keeps revisiting you in different generations. So when we talk about slavery on the whole, not just slavery in Africa, but slavery of Native Americans, slavery of, people who were in a land before, but then other people came into that land and took them as their property, you see that there was a lot of disassociation with what they considered to be powerful to them. And one of that was, of course, their spirituality, their religion. So that trauma of being disassociated with that and being forced into something else, I think it kind of still plays into our mentality. Granted, a lot of people, are comfortable with where they are with Christianity and Catholicism or whatever. I don't think that's actually a word, but you guys know what I mean. Like they are comfortable with that, but but then when you bring up, the African spirituality to them, then oh, it's the devil, and that's where that trauma comes in, like that mentality that everything that we used to have, that the devil, that's old. The Bible talks negatively about Egypt, but it's crazy because a lot of the concepts from the Bible, they can find traditions not only in Egypt, but in also like other, ancient religions. So I think that has one thing to do with it. And I also think the lack of reading and research and just, ignorance as well. I don't like to, clown my people, but I feel like some Black people can be very ignorant and they don't
Mm-hmm.
try to understand things from a deeper level. They'll just like, oh, that's crazy, that's a fury, that's not whatever. They don't want to do the research into those things.
Mm.
So I think it's those types of
Mm. And ignorance
Yeah.
is not a bad word. It's just like I feel
things.
like add a negative connotation to it because the definition for it is lacking knowledge. And to be honest, everyone is a
Yeah.
little bit ignorant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ignorant.
Yeah.
And
But it's just a lot of us, unfortunately, take ignorance to a whole nother level
Hold
to
on.
where since they're not educated about it and they don't have the knowledge about it, instead of learning about it, they dismiss it and think that it's foolishness, it's a waste of time,
Yep.
blah blah blah. Like that's where the ignorance gets them to a whole nother level.
mm,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and my like question for that is, do you think like we've been brainwashed to think a certain way?
Mm-hmm.
I would say yes and no because there are people who are mentally stable enough to break away from certain things or at least know that there is a higher truth and not judge other people for what they do. But to an extent, I would say more of yes. We have been brainwashed because we're not immersed by our culture to an extent. We're not immersed by our history. We're immersed, especially modern day people. It's more, especially in the Caribbean, it's more American culture, but more white American culture, not Black American culture. So when it comes to learning about our own selves, we don't know because we are not introduced to that. So I would say, yeah, we're brainwashed from that. And then when we are introduced, because it's so far from us, we're like, what is this?
Mm, that's true. Cause we're so in touch with, I'm not gonna say we as like in us, but as far as the Black community in general, like a lot of us are used to what we learned from the white man. When we were in school, like throughout, from elementary to high school, we're learning about their culture, not
Mm-hmm.
ours.
Mm-hmm.
If you
And
ever look at like the history books or whatever, we
oh
only have a
God,
small section compared
listen,
to a whole wide book
listen.
on a
Uh,
history that's not even our own. You don't really learn about it anywhere else unless you just take that
Initiative.
leap of faith or you take that initiative and you just do it yourself.
mm, that's so true because when I came here, like as I told you, I'm very interested in history, so I studied my degree in history, but all I was learning about was American and European culture. And oh my God, Europe has so much wars in their history. It was crazy. I just couldn't take it. There was just too many wars. So
Mm-hmm.
I just quit that. But in my school, it's Texas, it's in a small city. They don't have much diversity in their history program. And that's something that I advocated for a lot, as much as I could, like in papers, as I told you, I did those two research, as much as I could, I would try to bring out that African or Caribbean history aspect to it, to my school, to the curriculum of my school or whatever. And granted, there has been changes along the way, but there still needs to be a lot of work, yeah.
Because there's a lot of like history for Black people, like the Black
Hmm.
diaspora. There's
Oh
so
my
much.
God. Listen, it's so much like that's why my second paper isn't even complete because I came out thinking that I would only do certain cities, but these cities have so much to talk about. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Is there's like a lot like centuries worth of history, and like
Yeah.
it's just crazy how we're never taught that, and that's why most people don't even like look into it because it's like
Mhm.
we're not even guided towards. And it's funny that you say in European history there's so many wars. It kind of reflects their
Nature.
like yeah, their nature and their ancestors. We're talking about ancestors. Their ancestors
Yeah.
came from so much war, so the state
Right.
they're in kind of reflects that in it.
Yeah.
So, what are some things we can do to get to know our ancestors a little bit better and to connect with them on a much larger level?
I would say one of the best things is reading and research. And I could only speak from my perspective because that's what I did. I did a lot of reading and research. And to also not force it, to not get impatient, because right now we see a lot of people getting into these type of practices, but a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people want to skip ahead. They don't want to take the time that they need. But everybody needs to take that time because you never know what you can uncover. And granted, it is a journey. I'm still learning up until this day. I don't think we ever really stop learning. So that just
Right.
know that, like, just have patience. I also say meditation is a very good way. I actually have a video on my channel, which is I don't think I mentioned the name, but Holistic Healing TV on my channel on YouTube. I have a video on a meditation technique that you could use to connect with your ancestors. And it's a very powerful technique, and it's something that I've been using for years now. When I first started off my ancestor altar in the end of 2017, that's when I created my first altar. So I've been doing it since then. Um, and I don't want to get into the details of the video, but yeah, meditation and having an altar, don't really think it's demonic. There are so many traditions that have ancestor altars. Mexican, not only Mexican, I keep saying them, but just Central America, there are other places that do those type of things.
Mm-hmm.
China, of course, Asian culture in general. So
Mm-hmm.
also, I would say discover time periods or tribes you may feel connected to. Like do some research on them, watch some documentaries. I always watch documentaries on tribes that I feel connected to, or just to learn like what are their perspectives on certain things and how I could apply that to my life. So that is one thing. And in terms of the time periods, like the same civil rights movement, I felt connected to that time period, and I went about researching that time period. So you never know what you can uncover throughout, just thinking about a time that you felt like you might have been alive, or somebody from that time. Just go ahead and look into that.
Mm.
And yeah, pray too. I feel like prayer is an important tool, asking for revelations, because a lot of things can be revealed to you just through
Mm,
your dreams and stuff.
you're right.
That is
Yeah.
very true.
And shout out your YouTube channel one more time.
It's Holistic Healing TV.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, everybody write that down because I'm going to be looking it up tonight.
Yeah.
Actually, today since it's 10.
Yeah, it's like some amazing content. And I remember the
Oh,
first
thanks.
video I watched, I was just like, oh my gosh, she knows what she's talking about. Because
Thank you.
you mentioned Christ, and I was just like, I literally just finished hearing this somewhere else, and I was like, okay. And I just loved the fact that you were so comfortable in like with what you're talking about. I could tell
Oh,
it
yeah.
was so natural, and I was like, yeah, I love this. I love this.
Mm. Like, what are some tribes that you felt connected to? Because, like, a lot of people don't know much about the tribes. And honestly, I
Mm,
can reveal that I didn't know much
mm,
about it until college. And I've met, like, different people from, like, Africa, not the
mm,
continent, but, like, Nigerians and others. And, like, that's when I started, like, hearing more about, like, tribes and, like, the
mm-hmm.
tribes that they have. Like, which tribes do you feel connected to and, like, people can search and find some information about?
Um, well, I would say, okay, the question is, how do you know which tribes you're connected to, or just which tribes I'm connected to?
Oh, you can answer both.
Okay, let me start with which tribes I'm connected to, and I guess it will just flow. I feel most connected to the Yoruban tribe, and I would say Nubian, because Nubians make up ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
That's what I would say for ancient Egyptians. Um, and I also felt connected to tribes from Ethiopia. And I don't even really know how to describe the connection. It's like uncovering something when I was doing the research. Oh, and the Dogon tribe. That's another tribe in Africa. When I was doing the research, it was their practices and their knowledge and how they, set up their kingdoms, or not kingdoms, but their communities, their values that attracted me. So for the Yoruban tribe, they're very communal. The ancient Egyptians, they think highly of themselves, but not like in a dissenting way, just in the way that they carry themselves. Their women, always had their little makeup, always adorned with jewelry. And it sounds kind of superficial, but it was for them, it was more spiritual than how it is right now when it comes to jewelry. It's very materialistic. For them, it was more, clothing their temple. So just learning
mm,
about them, I felt, connected to them, especially the Dogon tribe, because during my research, I found out that they uncovered a star called Sirius B before other people could have discovered it. So basically, like before a telescope was discovered or whatever, they discovered that star, and you needed a telescope to see that star. And they actually, in their mythology, they said that they come from the stars. So we have, tribes that already know that they are star seeds. And anyway, it's crazy, but that's kind of something else I feel connected to. And to an extent, Native Americans, well, Native Indians from where I'm from, they're called the Kalinago, because I have that in my blood, in my bloodline. So I haven't really done much research on them though, but those are mainly the tribes I feel connected. I hope
Mm.
that answered the
mm.
question.
I love how you
I'm
brought
just trying to write all of them down so I don't forget.
Oh, okay. I hope I wasn't talking too fast.
no,
Nah,
no, no,
Oh
you
Okay.
no, oh no.
we'll
no
go
for
back
sure.
and listen.
Okay.
Right.
And like, how did you start connecting with your tribe? Like,
I think the documentaries was really what got me connected because I would actually learn more about them. Granted, there are some that you can't really find documentaries on, but I could see them in their practices. And then also meditation. That's the main way I connected through meditation, listening to certain mantras on YouTube, and
Mm.
also ancient texts. For example, I would try to read hieroglyphics. I was trying to learn how to read them. I would look up the symbols online, try to read them. I would write them down, do them in my spells, burn burn papers with the hieroglyphics on them, all of that, to just kind of get more connected in that sense. But meditation and, yeah, reading the ancient text would really kind of, I think what I consider it to be, the ancient text is like you are reminding yourself of something that you already seen. You may not know that you already seen it, because you are in a new life. But if you feel connected to that tribe and whatever, like if you go ahead and look at how they had their buildings, just look at how their old, their artifacts, all of that, it will kind of, I feel like it kind of pushes your brain to remember or to connect to that. That's all I feel. I don't know. But yeah, I hope that answered the question, oh Crash.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
answers
Mm.
Okay,
the question.
okay.
I actually really love what you're talking about because I actually remember having like I was getting a healing session done, and I remember having like a vision about it was a specific time period in Egypt, so it's like
Mm,
I could really connect to that time. It's not like the whole history of Egypt, but a specific time
mm,
period because they're like
mm,
ruled by different leaders, and it's
yeah.
like I can really relate to what you're saying and just feeling different tribes because I honestly do the same thing, especially with the Zulu tribe too. I'm
Oh yeah.
always watching their dances.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That too. I like to put on, like, I like dancing, So I like to put on, African music, like traditional African music, and I just go crazy in my home,
Mm,
just dancing all over the place.
that's really good. I love
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say one more thing I remembered. There was it's not really tribes per se, but like other cultures, how I felt connected to them. Like growing up, I always felt connected to ancient China and Peru.
Mm,
And as I, got into learning about ancestors, I felt like I may have past lives in those places.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I feel like, I have a connection to those type of places. So I think that's another thing, think about places that you felt like you have been before, or you just feel like connected to those places. Yeah, that's another thing.
yeah.
Okay. So, what advice would you give to someone who is learning about this for like the first time?
I would say to try to be open-minded. um don't be, if it's like your very first time and you're like, what is this, what are they talking about, don't try to close off yourself to the information. At least what irritates me the most about people who call these things demonic is that they don't try to at least have the knowledge and the understanding of it. They're very closed out to it.
Mm.
So just be open minded. And then if it's not for you, then don't force it, And even if you feel like it's for you, don't force it either. Don't rush into it. Take your time. A lot of people, when they rush into these things and, they rush into doing all type of different things, then they get some negative repercussions from that. And then they start to call it demonic because they didn't even know what they were doing in the first place. So just take your time with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your ancestors do not play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the brainwash can be due to people calling it demonic can be due to the fact that they were brainwashed to think that
Yeah.
outside of what they've been taught is demonic.
Yeah.
Mm,
Right. Feel like once people actually learn and actually research it, then they'll better understand it.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Because a lot of people, I don't know why, but it's just a lot of people when they hear stuff like that, it's like Well, I've never seen it. I've never read about it. I've never seen it on, TV or this or that.
Yeah.
And they feel like, so where are you getting
Oh
this
God.
from? Like, is this just all up in your
Yes.
mind, or is this
Yes.
like actually real?
Yep. 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 Yep.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know, like, with all the research that you've done on ancestors, can things that your ancestors did affect you in the present right now, even if they're not alive?
I say yes, and I think it's in a positive and negative way. To just shoot it in the foot or whatever. Let's talk about the negative way very quickly. It deals with like generational karma and curses. A lot of people, throw around those words, but it could be things like not having specific finances, or things in love, or things in just confidence, maybe, maybe a past ancestor, like a grandmother in this life or whatever. She wanted to start a business, but she never started that business. And I feel like those things, like physical manifestations, are also inward manifestations. So she never started that business. Maybe she wasn't confident enough to do it, and that kind of flowed down throughout the generation. So now you're not confident, or your mother, maybe she was abused, and now you're being abused. So there's certain energies that stick around and feed off of certain lineages. And then in the positive way, it could be gifts. So my gift, I feel, when it comes to dancing, I feel like I was gifted that skill by my ancestors, because Africans, they do a lot of dancing in their tribal practices. So I feel like it could be negative, but also positive. Maybe you even have positive karma. And I always feel like there are things that you could always clear up in your generation, in your lineage or whatever. But then you could have more positive than negative karma. Maybe your ancestors were ancient chiefs or whatever. So now you still have that type of energy in your lineage, you're a leader, that type of way.
Can that apply to like you in a different life as well?
Like, you mean like ancestors from a different life?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I feel so. Um, I think that's kind of what propelled me deeply into ancient Egyptian mythology, because of, you know, how they carried themselves again, Pharaoh, and then you have the women and all of that. I felt like I came from that type of royalty. So I started to treat myself in that way.
Mm,
Mm. Like, and
believe.
I do love how you say your dancing dance is a gift, because it was literally the other day you did a dance routine on your channel, and I was like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
she's really talented.
Oh, thank you.
Like, oh yeah, she mentioned that. But
Thank
I
you.
do really think it is a gift, because I see you dancing. I'm like, oh, she's really into it. It's not just
Yeah,
something she's doing. She really loves dancing.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
You can see the passion in it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah. Yeah, we've been working on that video for so long. I was so happy to get it out.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, what are some benefits of actually getting in touch with our ancestors and getting to know them?
I would say you learn more about yourself, like you learn, if you believe, you truly believe that this is where your ancestors come from. Or let's not talk about ancient, more present day ancestors, just keeping a connection with a deceased, oh, I said disease, a deceased mother or whatever, and trying to heal maybe a bond that you had with her that wasn't there in the present day. I know she's gone. You want to still keep in connection with her. Or maybe you guys were close, whatever it is. Just keeping that energy going and learning more about yourself through that, like learning more about yourself through the connection. It's really hard to explain, but it's like, through meditation or through talking to your ancestors, they could reveal things to you, or you could just reveal things to yourself. You're speaking to them about things that maybe hurt you in the family lineage, and now you're trying to get to the bottom of it. So that allows you to just explore why there are blocks, not only in your life, but in your family life, and try not to repeat that. And of course, we talked about gifts, getting gifts from your ancestors. it could be gifts that they had, things that they were gifted with, and now they're giving that to you because they see that you have the vibe for that. And healing, we've said that already, healing your family lineage, healing yourself, and just the wealth of knowledge, just the knowledge that you will gain just from trying to learn more about where you come from.
I love that.
That's a good response.
And yeah, because the healing part is also extremely important. And like, it's funny because you mentioned that a while ago. You mentioned we're gonna do this episode on ancestors, and someone gave me a book on ancestors, and they were like, you can be going through things, and like you could be suffering from things, and it's because of something that your ancestor went through, and you can actually heal it. You can heal them
Yeah.
from that that thing that they went through, and that can help your whole family tree not have that. It's well, if it's a good thing, you don't want to take it away.
Yeah.
If it's something that has been weighing down on you and bothering you, you can actually heal that. And I think I think you mentioning healing is very important, because some people are suffering things because of lack of connection with some ancestors, or something that an ancestor did, and it might not have even been anything bad that they did, just
Yeah.
something that they did, and healing from it is extremely important.
So, question: since we're talking about healing,
Mm-hmm.
are are you like into the like using the sage and like crystals?
Yes, I am. I don't talk about it as much though, because I think, especially right now, a lot of people, as soon as they get into these things, that's what they immediately associate spirituality with, crystals and sage and stuff, and then they call it new age, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then, I don't know if you guys have seen the recent trend on YouTube, at least at the time of recording. There's a lot of people who are saying that they moved away from new age and back to Christianity. But when they talk about new age, they only talk about crystals and burning sage and meditation and tarot. So I do it privately, but I try not to, talk about it too much because it's such a popular trend. And I also heard that I did some research and I heard that the overproduction of sage is actually harming Native American tribes who actually did this in their times. Not they're not just doing it as it's trending.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely become more of a business, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many crystals. I'm like, okay, I'm not saying that people shouldn't own crystals. Go ahead,
Yeah, yeah.
start your journey, and if that's what it starts off as, do.
Yeah, yeah, for
But
sure.
like, just because, as you said, it doesn't define spirituality, and I always had a hard time even speaking on it, just because
Yeah.
I felt uncomfortable. Like I kind of felt a resistance to it, because I was like, oh, it's like you can use soil and it still have the same effect. Like you don't have to
Yeah.
crystals
Yeah.
and like sage. You can literally get
Yeah.
some garden and like from the earth,
Yes.
use it, and it's
Yes.
gonna be the same. It's not these things specifically. It's a spiritual aura about it.
Hmm.
Right. I guess it's just the first thing. Yeah, like you all said, it's just the first thing that we're kind of introduced to it when we start looking at it. And unfortunately, now a lot of people are just selling it because it's a good money move,
Yep.
especially since we're in quarantine. A lot of
Yeah.
us are going through our own mental, traumas, and spiritual healing is a very powerful and beneficial way of getting, in touch with ourselves and our ancestors. And I feel like a lot of people are using that as a money move.
Yep.
But for the ones who are really are interested about it and really want to get into it, that's the first thing that we see.
Yep. That's
So
true.
that's the first thing that we learn and we gravitate towards. And I think it gets even, what's the word? It gets even more exciting when we start learning about like the cards. And then we
Yeah.
start learning about tapping into our ancestors. And then now we're
Yeah.
reading on about our
Yeah.
ancestors. And then that
And that
brings on more.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I feel like it's kind of backwards because I feel like you begin learning first about your ancestors because that way you are more guided towards what would naturally be a part of you versus what may not naturally be a part of you.
Mm,
You know, like I know that there are cultures that use crystals, but I don't know if they use it to an extent of where how we're using it now. For
right.
the most part, sage was just associated with a Native American culture, but now everybody's bringing sage. So, you're not
Mm,
really doing something that's more traditional to you, if you get what I'm saying.
right.
Not you as you, but just people in general.
So the first step is really tapping into your ancestry first
Yeah.
to see
Or yeah,
where.
yeah. Or at least your energy, like tapping into what needs to be healed within you, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
I definitely agree with that because I at first I was I never I only purchased sage recently and I haven't even
Yeah.
used it, but
Me
mine
neither.
definitely going to the garden and getting soil on my hand, like that's my,
Yeah.
and it's like, and 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 as you said, it the information does come first. The research on who you
Mhm.
are and your ancestors definitely does come first to lead you to that right path, because
Mhm.
like, if you start in the middle to find like the correct way to go, is
Begin, yeah.
more trial and error. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I do think the crystals and sage, it depends on the individual. It's actually a good thing in a way, just
Oh
because
yeah. Yeah.
like it can lead them down to where they were going. So it
Yeah.
really just depends on the person and their heart as well.
Yeah, for
Mm.
sure.
So are
Well, I
there
can't wait to look into it more.
mm, like I'll research my ancestors first before I get involved because I don't know
Right.
where to go from there.
Yeah, I feel you.
So are there like any stories you have on how working with ancestors have cleared up certain aspects of your life?
Okay. I have one main story about my life. It's recent, so it's mainly what I remember. And then I have another story about um someone else. So it's mainly for dreams that I guess get healing from my ancestors. Um Yeah. So the first one was a dream, and it was a night that I was praying to my native Indian ancestors. I tried to, learn about them more, and this was this year. All the while, for the past years, I've just been focused on African because that's where I feel most connected to. But I didn't want to deny my bloodline or whatever. So I remember it was a night where I burnt some ancestor money, and I was like, just reveal something to me about my lineage. And I just went to bed. I was like, okay, I did what I had to do. I'm just going to bed. And I had a dream where an ancestor, a native Indian ancestor, appeared to me and gave me some advice about my heritage that I needed to hear. It was along the lines of denying who I am and where I come from. So I took note of that, and since then I've been trying to just learn more about the Kalinago tribe from my island. And then in terms of somebody else, there was a time. There's actually two people. The first one, there was a time that their mother passed away, and they had to go to this service. It was a year later, and they had to go to a memorial service of their mother. And it was the night before, and she appeared to me in a dream, and she told me to tell the person everything is going to be all right, everything is going to be okay. And I was like in college, I was younger back then. And I remember waking up the next day and I was so confused, like, why is she telling me that? And it was so crazy because the person called me that same morning crying because they missed their service for their mother. So they felt like they disappointed their mother because they're very close to their mother, and their mother passed away, and they were the only person who was really taking care of their mother. So, not being there, they felt really hurt. And then I told them about the dream, and it was very interesting. And another person, just to close off, um, is the woman whose grandmother passed away, but she's very close to her grandmother. And I remember a dream about, a poem that her grandmother wrote. And I was telling her about it the next day, and she was like, yeah, she was just reading the poem last night. So she told me, thank you for the confirmation that her grandmother, felt her spirit reading that poem or whatever. So that's kind of my stories of how the ancestors have come through just to reassure me, people around me about, things in their life.
I love that.
That is so dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do ancestor readings as well, tarot readings. So those readings always pop in. They always pop in. The ancestors always come through there.
Oh, I need a reading.
Oh, yeah. Well, you could just hit me up.
Yeah.
Bet I got you.
Because there's literally a question. It's like, do you offer any services that you want people to be aware about, especially related to
Yeah.
this topic or even off this topic?
Yeah. Well, mainly right now, I'm in college or I'm in university. It's so much things that take up my time. But by the time I guess you air this, I will be graduating. So anyway, but so my um services may change, but right now I sell oils and then I do tarot readings. I do love readings, but like I try to more stick on things that are more important. But I do say that you could ask any free questions, but I do like basic, I have different prices for different times, and then I do ancestor readings.
Oh,
How can someone go about finding like your price? Do you have like a website or?
Not right now, but they could just email me. All my information is on my YouTube channel and also on Instagram. Right now it's deactivated though. I did that. I might reactivate it, by the time this air out or whatever. So my information is on my Instagram. They could just email me. That's
Oh,
how I do it right now.
And you did mention that like once you graduate, you would start offering other services. Do you
Yeah.
like what you would want to offer?
Yeah, I wanna like it's like I wanna do more in terms of teaching people or showing people the basics of it, not
mm.
really selling um things like sage or whatever, but I still want to continue doing my oils, but I want to sell like protection kits or things like that come with just different herbal mixes, because I do believe in the power of healing with herbs, just different herbal mixes and an oil and maybe a candle. I believe in the power of candle magic as well. So I want to get more into doing that and also like offering classes or things like that to teach basic information about these things.
I'll be there for the classes, definitely.
Me too. That's so needed right now.
Yeah.
So whenever you get jump started, just let us know.
Okay.
Definitely.
okay. So we're getting down to closing this. It was like very informational. What
Yeah, it
It
was
really
great. I
was.
enjoyed it.
I
Thank you for sharing so much information with
No
us.
problem. I talk a lot, as you guys could see. So,
that's fine.
but
That's
when I start,
fine.
yeah, when it's something that I'm passionate about, I could go on about it forever.
So with that being said, what is like a message you want to send the listeners today?
Well, just want to say thank you for listening. If you got through to the end, if you listened to all of it, I hope that you gained some new perspectives. Or if you already knew this thing but you didn't know maybe one or two things, I hope that you learned something from this and have an open mind about it. Again, don't force yourself into it. If it ain't for you, don't try to make it for you. But if you feel like this is something that you could get into, just take your time with it and do your research. Oh, and check out my channel.
Yeah, check
Yes.
my channel.
Yes, because I'll be going over there right after this.
I'm so happy that you came on here and
Thank you for having me.
thank you for coming. We really appreciate you and your time and your energy.
No
Yeah.
problem.
We would probably love to have you here again, like
Okay.
talk about
Yes.
something
We could
else.
definitely do that.
Mm,
Yeah, there's a lot that can be talked about, like maybe the deities or the Yoruba deities. Is it?
mm.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I mentioned them briefly. That's another thing I took my time with too.
Yeah. And like one thing about that is just that I kind of didn't want to like. For me, I find myself rushing into stuff like that. So it's
Okay, I feel you.
time.
We all have our moments because there are things that I felt like I rushed into as well. But over time, you slow down, I believe. You slow down, you find what really suits you, and you learn more about that.
Mm, I
Yeah.
definitely agree. So before we go, are there any? You did mention your YouTube page, Holistic Healing
Yeah.
TV. Do you have an Instagram that you want to shout out? A Facebook page? Anything else?
Well, yes. It's so crazy because I'm so shy. It's people probably don't think that, but I'm so shy. So I get so nervous when it comes to talking about social media and people following me. But my Instagram is Holistic Healing TV as well. It's the same name as the YouTube channel, and I have a Facebook page called I think it's called Holistic Healing. And but people could also add me on Facebook with my personal Facebook. It's Kerdell Coffee, and my name spelled KERDELLCUFFY. So if anybody would just add me on Facebook, they could do that as well.
Thank
Okay, thank
you.
you.
Sounds good. Make sure you all go check her out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today on the Young Intellect Podcast. We hope you enjoy the show and tell a friend to tell a friend about us. And make sure you take care of yourself and your mind.
Cause I'm a young intellect. I'm a young intellect.